16 minutes past 8, it is on Morning Live, and a warm welcome back. Now, according to the Graduate Professional Index, or the PPS, students should choose the right subjects while they are in school to give them more career options after they've completed Matric. The PPS adds that parents should not place students with certain subjects like maths and science into a box. This follows the successful Matric pass rate of 2016. Now, joining us this morning is Motshabi Nomvethe, a technical specialist at the PPS. A very good morning to you, Motshabi. Welcome to Morning Live.
Morning,
compliment of the season.
Thank you, same to you.
All right, now you say that learners should choose their subject wisely at school. Can you elaborate on this?
Remember what you said earlier, it is very important that already long before Matric, so remember subject choice normally happens in about grade 10. And from then already, students should be pretty clear about what it is that they want to do. And how they get to that decision is based on multiple factors. One, they need to understand themselves, they need to know themselves. They need to know what are their passions, what are their interests, what are they good at. Okay, so that would be the first choice. But more importantly, they need to look at the labor market itself and say, what are the demands of the labor market? Because there's no point studying something where everybody's doing it, but there's very little demand for that specific occupation or profession. So they need to be aware. They really need to be relatively aware of what is happening around them and have an outward look, and more importantly, a more long-term view as to what will be happening in the labor market in the next 5 to 10 years. Because if you think of from grade 10 through Matric, through then tertiary or some level of tertiary education, we're talking about 5-6 years, that period. So you need to say, whatever I choose today, will it still be relevant in 5, 6, 10 years' time? So those are the things that they really need to look at. And like you say, there has been a very huge focus on maths and science over the years, and I think some students are unfairly being forced or being pushed into this maths and science box, which is important. I mean, we can never ever pretend it's not, or we can never ever, you know, we do need maths and science graduates. We need more professionals coming through with maths and science. But there is a whole lot of other professions out there that don't necessarily require maths and science. So we should be careful not to push kids in the wrong direction, because either we failed as parents to do that, or we feel that's the right thing for them to do, because ultimately they're choosing now their profession, they're choosing their career, and that's going to go on for another 30-40 years.
Or maybe choose a career for their kids, a career that pays for the kids.
Exactly. So it needs to be something that they're going to, but most importantly, it's something you're going to need to enjoy. For example, you can be brilliant in maths and science, but if you squirmish and you can't handle blood and accidents, there's no way you're going to be a good doctor. Absolutely. So, you know, little factors like that. But then there's opportunity for you to either then be a maths and science teacher, for example, which we also need. That is a skill that we desperately need as well. So I think traditionally we always heard, if you're good at maths and science, you have to be a doctor or you have to be an engineer. That were pretty much the only two options we were given. But we said that the world is now the kids' oysters. There's so many opportunities, so many jobs that didn't exist 5-10 years ago. And people need to start looking into that rather than just sticking to the traditional professions. And also, more importantly, and I think that's where also students are often led astray, university is but one of the avenues that is available for post-matriculants. There's universities, there's technical colleges, there's your FETs, there's artisans. There is a huge shortage of artisans in the country. So they need to look at that as well and not just say, oh, well, I need to be a doctor, I need to be a lawyer, I need to be an accountant. Yes, we do need those, but those are not the only professions out there, and they really need to start thinking out the box. And like I said, the only way that they can do that is already from a very early age, start investigating, you know, just be in tune with what's happening around you and say, oh, I read about data analytics. What is that? What does it involve? I see air traffic controllers. What is it? What does it require? And then, you know, so they need to be inquisitive and be curious about all the different professions. I mean, just being out here today, there's so many people behind the scenes. We know you, but there's so many people working to put you on the screen. And that's the interest that they need to have to say, well, who are those people? What are they doing? What is required of them? And do I see myself fitting into that role?
Yeah. Now, having said that, Motshabi, there are certain perceptions that students should choose, they should choose subjects or certain career avenues due to their subjects. So, for instance, if they choose maths or sciences, they should pursue a career in the sciences. But then we do have personalities like Phuthuma Nhleko, who's the group CEO for MTN, who is a road engineer by profession. We have Jacques Silas, who is a civil engineer by profession, but is heading F&B South Africa. We've got politician for Ahang, former Ahang member, who's conquered the corporate world, but is a medical doctor by profession. Your thoughts on this?
We should place ourselves in a box. Like I say, what you study is a platform for you to start. But those days of, if I've studied medicine, I can only ever be a doctor, that has died a death many, many years ago. That is but a start, and that might be where your passion is and where your ability is. But But once you have done that, there's so many other things you could do. For example, you could go into a pharmaceutical company. You could become a researcher. You could become a teacher, a lecturer, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So yes, people do need to start. There is so much more. It is important to have a basis, whatever that is. Like I say, it could be in the performing arts, it could be in journalism, it could be engineering or whatever. But careers are changing so often. Jobs themselves are changing so often that also we need to be adaptable and we need to evolve with the times. And that's why I say it's always important for you to be aware of what's happening and say, where are the gaps? I think the biggest skill that we need to have right now is to identify where the gaps are and saying, what can I bring to the table to fill that gap? Having said that, I think the one area where we need a whole lot more attention, that's another debate, a whole long debate, is entrepreneurship. Because most jobs, even if you think you're going to be a doctor or you're going to work for an accounting firm, at some point, firstly, we know about the unemployment rate, which is very high and very depressing and frustrating. So really we need to be saying...
And most youngsters don't view entrepreneurship as a profession.
And that is a viable career option, a viable profession that is enhancing, it is enriching, they can do what they want, they can work for themselves, they can come up with solutions and solve quite a lot of the problems.
Yeah,
so that's something that they really need to focus on.
In 20 seconds, do we have an oversupply in certain disciplines?
There are some. I read up quickly, some of the areas where there is, and remember this again, a demand and supply thing. Construction has taken a knock over the last few years, so jobs in that sector are getting less and less. Your humanities, that is also there is an oversupply there, so you will find that you would battle probably to get jobs in those areas. And that's the type of research that our matriculants need to be doing so that they can always stay employable and make it easy for them at least to find jobs.
All right, thanks for your time, Motshabi.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Well, as we bid the class of 2016 farewell and good luck with all their future endeavors. Like Motshabi Nomvethe has said from PPS, it is pivotal for learners who are going to high school this year to choose their subject wisely. We do thank Motshabi for her time. Well, we'll cross over to a short break and we'll be back with more sports news after this.